Hi everyone, this is Wei Ting Yu, and I gonna explain how I solve the question 4.2 and question 4.4 and question 5.23. So first, in the question 4.2, we given the exposure for each quarter in 2011 and 2012, and we want to calculate the exposure earned in calendar year 2012. I just assume each policy is returned in the middle of the quarter. So we got the the effective date for each policy. And also we write down the given exposure by question. And since it is an annual policy, so the end date will be 1 year later, app, the effective date. So let's assume let's if we use half month as a unit, we will get 3 units for first policy. And since it is a annual policy, which is 1 year policy, so there is totally 24 half month in one policy. So how do we get the proportion of each policy? We use the 3 units, which is 3 half months, to divide it by 24. So now we get the proportion of the uh, policy in 2012. So now we use the proportion to times the disposal. It will and then it will be 1375 right here. So now this is how we get the first policy, and we use the same method to get to get rest of policy. And once we get the exposure for each year, we signed it up, and we will get the answer. In the part B, it is similar with the part A, but it is the 6 month policy, so the end date will be the 6 months after the effective date. So next, we want to calculate the proportion of each policy in 2012. And we can see in the first two policy, because it end in the 2011, so there is no proportion in the 2012, so which is 0 for the first two policy. And next, we can see the end date for the third policy is February 15, which is 1.5 months. Which is, if we use the half month as a unit, we have 3 units. And since this is a 6 month policy, so we divide it by 12, because we have 12 half months for one policy. So now we got the proportion. So next, we just times the proportion with the exposure, and then we get the number of exposure for each policy. And when we sign it up, we can get the answer. Uh, in question 4.4, we are given the exposure for each month, and we want to calculate the number of car year earned in the calendar year 2010. Uh, we given the exposure by question, and I just assume that the policy is returned in the middle of each month. So So we have the effective date for each policy. And since it is an annual policy, so we got the end date. And let's use the half month for 1 unit. We can we can get there is 23 unit for the first policy and 21 unit for February. Um, it's very straightforward because um we just want to know the proportion for each policy. The proportion of the 2010 in each policy. And when we see the uh, effective date and the end date, we can easily to understand that there is about 0.95 in the 2010 and it's about 0.05 in 2011. So now we got the proportion for each policy. We use the proportion times the exposure, and then we got the exposure for each policy in calendar year 2010. And when we signed it up, we will get our answer. Next, in the Part B, it is a 6-month policy, which means the end date uh, will be half year later than the study date. So in the first 6 policy, we can easily get the proportion, which is 1, because we can see that uh, this policy started in 2010 and end in 2010. So for those policy end in 2011, we want to calculate the proportion for the last 6 policy. And we use half month for as a 1 unit as well. And then we will get the unit right here. And we divide since this is a half year policy, we totally have the 12 unit in this policy. So we just use this one divided by 12, and then we got the proportion. And since we got the proportion for each policy, we just use the proportion to times the uh, the exposure, and then we got every exposure for each year. And when we sign it up, we will get our answer. In the question 5.23, um, we have the given data. We have the effective we have the effective date for 5 policy, and also we have the policy premium for each policy. And since this is the annual policy, we have the end date 1 year after the 1 year after the study date. And given by the answer, um, uh, given by the question, the audit will occur after 6 months of the policy expired. So let's make it into a table. So all of these are given by the question. We have the effective date for each policy and the end date, and also the audit occurred date, and also the premium. And now we can solve the problem. So first, let's talk about A. we want to calculate the calendar year 2016 return premium as of December 31, 2016. Because it is return premium, so we only care about the premium return in the 2016, which is policy number 4 and policy number 5. And so all the premium from 2016 are 180 and 300. And next, let's talk about the audit. So so we can see the art uh, based on from the information we got from we already have. We know that the audit occur date for the policy 1 and policy 2 is in 2016. So we just use the 0.05 times the initial times the premium will be 10. 10 for policy 1 and 6 for policy year. So let's add the premium and the audit. Let's calculate the sum of all the premium and all the audit, and we can get 496 will be our answer. Next, we want to calculate the calendar year 2016 earned premium as of December 31, 2016. So since we want to calculate the earned premium, so we want to know the proportion of each policy in 2016. So let's use so by the given information, we know in the policy 1 we don't have any proportion in 2016, and in the policy 2 we have 4 months in 2016, and in the policy 3 we have 9 months and 11 months for policy 4 and 4 months for policy 5. So since it is an annual policy, so we divide it by 12 months to get the proportion. And then once we got the proportion, we times the premium, and then we got the premium for each policy. And this is for the premium part. Next, we want to calculate the audit part. Because we calculate the premium as of December 31, 2016. So we can see here, the audit is not happened yet. So here's 0, and we got the audit right here. So let's sum the premium part and the audit part up, and then we can see 516 will be our answer. Because we want to calculate the policy year 2016, so we don't consider the first 3 policy, which is not written during 2016. And because it is written, all the premium from 2016 are 180 plus 300. And let's check the audit part again. We can find the audit of this policy have not have